Hello! Today we're taking a look at Iconoclasts, a Metroidvania puzzle platformer that was almost a decade in development. The game was something of a passion project for creator Joakim Sandberg, and it's been a long and no doubt bumpy road to releasing the final product. I first stumbled across Iconoclasts about 6 years ago when I played a demo version on Sandberg's website. I was instantly charmed by it, but when I didn't hear any news for several years, I assumed a completed version was never going to see the light of day. Now, I'll say from the off that I'm very pleased that assumption proved to be wrong. In the interest of full disclosure, you should know that I received a free copy of the game from GOG.com, and that the link I've included in the description for you to go and buy it is my affiliate link. This means I get a small commission on any copies of the game sold through the link. It's an indirect way to support the channel, and it does help a lot, but it's something you should be aware of should you choose to follow the link. Anyway, on to the game. In Iconoclasts, you're cast in the role of Robin, a young mechanic who has been using her skills to help out a nearby settlement, despite such tinkering being strictly prohibited by the ruling theocracy of the world, the One Concern. The One Concern have an iron grip on the planet's rapidly depleting energy source, Ivory. Only sanctioned employees of the Concern are permitted to handle it, or to work with any objects powered by it. Falling foul of this decree results in a deadly penance being imposed upon you. This is where Robin's story begins, as she's caught performing her handiwork by agents of the One Concern, and is subsequently embroiled in a struggle that will decide the fate of the planet. The narrative has far more depth than we usually see in this type of game, taking on some broad philosophical subjects, and it's as much a story-based adventure as it is a platformer. The overall story is an engaging one, but occasionally the dialogue is somewhat clunky. I did spot a few grammatical errors, and there are quite a few instances of awkward phrasing. However, for the most part, I didn't find this to be too much of an issue, and the game is generally fairly well written. Despite the seemingly dire state of affairs, things aren't all doom and gloom in Iconoclasts. The game is peppered with irreverent humour, and there were several moments that made me genuinely laugh. We're introduced to a cast of colourful characters throughout the story, each of them distinctly drawn and with their own personal arc that develops as you play through the game. The winning personality of the game's characters is due in no small part to the game's visuals. Pixel art games have gotten something of a bad rap in the last few years due to their ubiquity, but they're used here to excellent effect. Every character has their own unique mannerisms and way of moving, and they're all incredibly expressive. The environments are all beautifully drawn, and each new area has a distinctive look and feel. This is also true of the enemies, of which there is an impressive variety. In fact, there are so many unique art assets and animations in the game, you soon realise where much of that development time went. The music and sound are quite nicely done and serve their purpose, but in my opinion aren't particularly memorable. Iconoclasts is surprisingly large and sprawling, but because of its story-driven nature, it is more linear than some other games of its ilk. Being firmly rooted in the Metroidvania genre, there is some backtracking involved, particularly if you want to find all of the hidden treasure chests, but Iconoclasts offers its own twist on this style of gameplay. Many of the game's rooms are self-contained puzzles, and are solved by obtaining a particular upgrade or using an item in a new way, and sometimes the key to solving them is to kill an enemy in a creative manner. The puzzles are cleverly designed, but occasionally cross the line into being frustrating when it's unclear whether you lack the required item or are just doing something wrong. Thankfully, these occasions are rare enough that it doesn't become a major problem. Some areas are unlocked once you reach a certain point in the story, and while this is usually obvious, now and then I found myself aimlessly backtracking until I happened to stumble upon the new path. There's a refreshing variety to the nature of the puzzles, and the gameplay never gets repetitive. This goes too for the game's brilliant, over-the-top boss fights. Each boss has its own unique set of mechanics, and these are rarely repeated. They often require you to solve some environmental puzzle at the same time as avoiding attacks in order to expose the boss's weakness. One particularly memorable fight sees you switching between Robin and another character in order to do this. In the case of some bosses, it's not immediately apparent what you're supposed to do, and it's possible you'll die due to not figuring out the mechanics in time. Usually this is fine, as the game creates a checkpoint at the start of boss fights. You'll be given the choice to try again, or start from your last manual save. This can occasionally be frustrating, as it sometimes means going through a cutscene again, or repeating an early phase of the boss. Fortunately, any backtracking or repetition of sections is saved from becoming too much of a slog by how fun the gameplay is. The controls are very well done, and there's a lot of enjoyment to be had from even the simplest run-and-gun sections. The controls feel responsive, and aside from a few finicky abilities, are very intuitive. One of the less successful aspects of the game, in my opinion, is the tweak system. This is a crafting system of sorts that allows you to create power-ups for Robin that can be equipped at a save point. These tweaks vary from allowing you to take a hit without being damaged, to being able to hold your breath for longer underwater. You can equip 3 of these at a time, but you will lose the use of 1 each time you take a hit. You can recharge them by killing enemies. The materials to craft these tweaks come mostly from treasure chests, which can be found throughout the world. Some of them are in plain sight, some of them deviously hidden. In my opinion, the tweaks are too easily lost, and aside from a handful of situations, offer too little impact on gameplay for them to be really worthwhile. However, I still found myself hunting down all the treasure chests just for the sake of more puzzle solving and being a completionist. The game offers 2 difficulty settings, normal and harder. Normal mode is fine if you just want to experience the story and take in the charming scenery, but if you're a veteran of the genre, harder mode is recommended. Being both story-driven and puzzle-based in nature, there's probably little replay value in the game unless you're into speedruns, but it's lengthy enough that you likely won't feel let down. It's been a long time coming, and aside from some minor flaws, Iconoclasts was well worth the wait. Please give the video a like if you liked it, and maybe check out some of the other stuff on the channel. If it floats your boat, then think about hitting that subscribe button. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.